Hi folks, this is Peter Boykin again, peterboykin.com. I am running for Lieutenant Governor of North Carolina, and I'm doing another viral video. Yes, I haven't shaved, and yes, I'm sitting in my car, because I've got those critics on the left that complain about this guy with the crazy hair, hadn't shaved yet, sitting in his car, oh my god. Well, you know, you make the studio where you have it when you're grassroots, and I'm going to do these regular segments on our Go Right News. And today's top news is the Georgia trial of Donald Trump will be televised. The trial of former President Donald Trump in Fulton County, Georgia, which have already had like 5 people stabbed in that prison in this last week, is set to be made accessible to the public through television and live streaming, according to the decision by Fulton County Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee. Remember, this news is brought to you by Peter Boykin for Lieutenant Governor of North Carolina. Life, liberty, justice, freedom, all should be protected, and our constitutional rights should be protected. Meanwhile, Arizona cannot keep Trump off the 2024 ballot. Arizona Secretary of State Adrian Fontes crushed the hopes and dreams of liberals and rhinos alike, announcing he can't use the 14th Amendment to keep former President Donald Trump off the 2024 ballot. Now, zooming out, Section 3 of the 14th Amendment bars citizens from holding office if they partook in, quote, insurrection or rebellion against the United States. This is why, since day one, the media and Democrats have branded the January 6th riot as a, quote, insurrection. Now, back in the news, Fontes previously left the door open to using the amendment to keep Trump off the ballot, but he conceded that Arizona law prevents him from doing so, saying the Arizona Supreme Court said that because there's no statutory process in federal law to enforce Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, you can't enforce it. He did covet his concrete by calling the Arizona's law, quote, stupid. Now, the numbers are an August poll found that Trump holds a lead over Biden in Arizona, 45-43, in a hypothetical 2024 matchup. Meanwhile, Joe Biden seeks increased funding for Ukraine while providing limited support to Lahaina, and that's in Hawaii. President Joe Biden has requested Congress to approve an additional $24 billion in aid, I've lost count how much we're sending, and weaponry to Ukraine. Now, in contrast, he recently allocated $95 million for the reconstruction of Lahaina, an American city grappling with the deadliest fire in over a century in Hawaii. $95 million as opposed to $24 billion. So another country. Biden wants more Ukraine cash, gives my peanuts. Joe Biden asked Congress to approve an additional $24 billion in aid and weapons for Ukraine, and by contrast, he recently allocated just $95 million to aid in the rebuilding of that American city in Hawaii after the deadliest fire in more than a century. Ukraine cash. If Congress approves the additional funding, it would bring the total amount of taxpayer-funded aid since February 2022 to a whopping $135 billion. Yet people want to complain about giving money or taking away our college loans or reducing it. They don't want Biden to do that, but they're not raising hell about how much money they sent to Ukraine. But you got people like Nikki Haley say, we've got to do that because we can't let Russia win. Now, the University of Hawaii's Pacific Disaster Center and the Federal Emergency Management Agency estimated it will cost over $5.52 billion to rebuild the city of Lahaina. I'm sure I'm pronouncing it all wrong, where 2,207 structures, mostly homes, were destroyed by wildfires. Now, let's do the math. The amount allocated for Maui is less than 1/10 of 1% of the funding given to Ukraine. Priorities, though, right? Meanwhile, the headlines, Biden's average approval is 42% approve, 53.9% disapprove. I'd like to meet the 42% approve because I don't know what questions they're asking these people. Meanwhile, 61% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. That is why we are actually living in the silent depression. We are at a time where the depression, the Great Depression, people are living better. There was less people, more resources. It was horrible. But the percentage of how things cost and how people made money was better than it is today. That's why Rich Man North of Richmond is a popular song right now. And 12% of the U.S. population is responsible for 50% of the meat consumption. Source of that's Real Clear Politics, The Lending Club, and Daily Wire. I've went out and I posted a lot of viral videos on my pages on YouTube and on Facebook and on my Telegram channel. You can go to telegram.me/RealPeterBoykin. Here's some other top articles. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell has been clearing to resume his schedule as planned after he froze for more than 30 seconds while fielding questions from reporters recently. X, formerly known as Twitter, will soon allow video and audio calling for users, as owner Elon Musk has announced. Meanwhile, scientists at the Pentagon Medical Intelligence Unit wrote in a research report that evidence indicates that COVID-19 may have been developed in a laboratory. Meanwhile, Joe Biden, this is kind of messed up here. Joe Biden will be in Alaska on the upcoming anniversary of the 9/11 terrorist attacks, making him the first president to not memorialize the day at either the White House or 3 attack sites. That's just sad. Like, people are like, let's just move on. Let's just ignore it. Kind of reminds me of those Republicans on stage that said, well, that's the past. January 6th is the past, and let's just move on to the future. Meanwhile, the Pentagon announced that a new website will release the declassified information about UFOs. And this is what really makes me mad. I did a whole video about this. Former Proud Boys leader Joe Biggs was sentenced to 17 years in prison over his role of the January 6, 2021 riots at the U.S. Capitol. And honestly, folks, that's upsetting, and it goes back to what those other presidential nominees were on stage were talking about, how they wanted to just move along. They just wanted to move along. Let's forget about the past. Do you trust them that they will pardon, or Pence or any of those people will pardon the J6 people who did not get equal justice? And you know why they're after Joe Biggs and Enrique, who wasn't even in D.C. because he's not even allowed in D.C., how they're after them for big time in jail because Donald Trump supported the Proud Boys. It's all about getting Donald Trump. At the end of the day, it's always been about getting Donald Trump. And that is the Go Right News of today. Thank you for tuning in. You can go to gorightnews.com, and I would hope you will go to peterboykin.com. Check out my campaign for Lieutenant Governor of North Carolina 2024. You know, I have an opinion, folks, about a lot of things. I read a lot of news, but I also am not stuck just with a right Republican-leaning, mindset about everything. I will call people out. There's an opponent of mine right now called Hal Weverman that I called him out. And he's kind of answered back in a way. And he's wondering about where the party went wrong. What's with the culture of the party? And why is the Republican Party changing? Because it's not matching the culture he wants. And at the end of the day, he claims he's working for the citizens, or he's going to work for the citizens. Well, obviously the Republican Party has changed. The party of Trump was always there. And we are of many cultures in the Republican Party, and many religions, and many moral codes, and many views. And if you're going to be in office, you need to start taking up for we the people. You need to start listening. And you might have to represent them using a different standard than one you totally agree with. And that's how I handle things if I'm elected. God bless everybody. Peace.